Okay, this section is on aquaculture. So we just finished looking at overfishing. So now what we're going to do is looking at basically farming, but of fish. So aquaculture is different than wild caught fish because we're talking here about breeding fish, rearing fish, harvesting fish, not just fish, but shellfish, plants, algae, any type of organism that we could basically grow in the water, like in a farm situation. So how does aquaculture work? First of all, the first kind of aquaculture we're going to look at here is called fish farming. These are man made tanks that we hold fish in. Other enclosures besides tanks, this one is in a river. We can do this with catfish, tilapia, salmon, carp, cod, trout, many different kinds of fish. You'll see sometimes big pens in the oceans, or you'll see these pens like in a river, or you'll see just enclosures in kind of industrial ideas of how to just grow fish in a small place, and you need water and you need food and you might need medicine, and we can harvest them and sell them instead of going out into the ocean and catching them in big nets. This is called mariculture. So in other words, instead of just plain old fish farming, this has to do with marine, not just freshwater but marine enclosures in open ocean. So here I've got some marine organisms living in an open ocean enclosure. You can see those round little enclosures there. Or sometimes seawater tanks or ponds. So I could have a tank of just seawater, salty water, and I could grow something in there too. We can do this with flounder, shellfish, shrimp, and oysters. And in the picture here, you see several things, not just in the picture of the ocean, but the picture on the right. What you see is mussels and shellfish growing on those like great looking things, and they're sort of tied down to the bottom, and they're giving us surface space for little tiny larvae of mussels and things to grow. And on the left in that picture, where it looks like it's just green weeds, there is like a long line, and it's giving a chance for seaweed to grow on there. So doing mariculture for growing seaweed is a valid thing and an industry that is growing um, as we speak, because we use seaweed in different types of foods, and you can eat it, and so it's pretty good. It's pretty nutritious. So this is a way of growing stuff in the ocean for humans to eat. Okay, if we look here at the benefits of aquaculture, it's efficient, cost effective, requires very little fuel, and it doesn't require a whole lot of area of water. So, just a small area of water, and there's less habitat destruction. So, what do I see in the picture here? I see seaweed farming on the right, shellfish farming on the left. What's some good things about this? I'm going to mitigate pollution. Shellfish and seaweed can both improve water quality. So, what they do is they take nitrogen and phosphorus out of the water, they put it into the organism, they filter it, they take out the nutrients, and it can lessen eutrophication in your water if you have these other organisms growing in there that need nitrogen and phosphorus. And so that can take that out of the water. This provides habitat. If you look at number 2, 85% of native oyster populations have been lost worldwide. So, if we do aquaculture for oysters, we can provide some benefit there of a returning habitat. We could support fish populations. Look at number 3. Shellfish and seaweed aquaculture gear provides a little bit of refuge for tiny little microfauna, little fish, crustaceans, and other invertebrates. So, we're kind of providing a little habitat there. And then also, number 4, this reduces local climate change impacts. So, what seaweed can do is reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the waterway, and it can add oxygen to the water, and that's a good thing. It locally basically mitigates some of the effects of ocean acidification. Ocean acidification comes from increased CO2 in the water, and so it makes the water clearer, and it puts a little bit of oxygen back in there, takes a little bit of CO2 out. So helpful in general to do this. So here's some 2014 aquaculture production highlights from this industry. And what are we looking at here? Marine and freshwater national totals: $1.3 billion in the U.S., 607 million pounds of production. We were 15th then in global aquaculture. And what are we actually farming for these types of industries? Oysters, clams, salmon, shrimp, and mussels. And you can see where we're doing it: Pacific Ocean, Gulf of Mexico, and Atlantic Ocean. A little more Atlantic than Pacific and a little less in the Gulf of Mexico. All these stats come from NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and they do a lot with the ocean and fisheries. And what this showing you here is which countries participate in aquaculture. So you can see China is way at the top here, 20.7 million tons. And then Peru, Chile, Japan, United States, we've gone down from there. Indonesia, lots of other countries in smaller amounts than us. And this is just another graphic by NOAA that shows that aquaculture grows resilient coastal communities. So we have lots of things going on here. We got oysters, we got seaweed, we got mussels, we've got big pens growing fish out there in the ocean. And it's adding to local jobs, it's adding to the community, it's helping protect the coast. So there's lots of good things about aquaculture. Now, of course, there's going to be some drawbacks. So, what are the negative things about basically having a farm for fish? And you can see my pens out here in the ocean. Well, fish as well as other animals also have to poop. So you got feces and you got waste feed, leftover feed that you gave them that they didn't eat. And so these are just waste products that end up in the ocean, and they can obviously pollute and contaminate. Now, we can also get some disease spreading going on here. So, what's happening here? There might be sea lice, there might be all kinds of other diseases and parasites that happen to affect the fish in these pens because they're in high densities, just like those factory farms where the pigs are close together. These fish are close together and they can spread disease. And then sometimes you have large farmed fish and they escape and they breed with or they outcompete natives. And so maybe you're growing fish that don't naturally live in that area of the ocean, and then they get out of the pen sometimes. And then now they're in the regular part of the ocean competing with the fish that are supposed to be there. So that can be a problem. This also shows some environmental risks of marine aquaculture. Lots of the same graphics here. Let's go back to that. We'll go back to that for a second. And it just shows you lots of things going on. We've got escape. We've got incubation of local diseases. We've got new diseases. We've got fish sewage coming out of there. And look at the top. Look at the RX there. We've got some drugs being given to these fish, so antibiotics and things like that to prevent disease. And we have to feed those fish something. So we've got to give them some kind of food. So lots of times their food is made from other fish. And so now we've got to go get other fish to feed the fish in the fish farm. And so all of these can be an issue in a marine environment when you are trying to do aquaculture. Also at the top there, you've got introduction of non-native species like Atlantic salmon or different things in the area where they don't usually live. So this could possibly happen. What's a better solution to all of this? Something called integrated multi-trophic aquaculture. This is kind of a cool system here. It cultivates all the trophic levels at once. It uses the waste nutrients from some of those fish to feed lower levels on the food chain. And so you're kind of making a system all together, kind of like the polyphase farms you saw with Joel Salatin, where he was trying to sustainably farm by using all the animals working together. This is the same idea. We're going to use all the different trophic levels together and see if we can give everybody what they need at one time. I do not know how prevalent this is today, this integrated multi-trophic aquaculture, but you would have to look this up. But it is an alternative to some of the problems that we get when we have traditional aquaculture. So that is basically fish farming, and those are the pros and cons of doing this type of fishing and or growing of fish to get food for humans and enough protein for humans.